This is GWEN Talks Radio, where intimate conversations reveal, heal, inspire, and entertain. And now, here's your host, Tess Cacciatore.
Okay, here we go. Welcome to GWEN Talks Radio, and I'm your host, Tess Cacciatore. So we have a fabulous time here. Every week we find topics to talk about with intimate conversations to reveal and heal. And when do we come to a place where we can say, I am enough, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am empowered? So often we hear women when they're in their 60s and older who say that they finally got to the place of self-confidence. They say, I don't care what anybody else says about me. What they say about me is none of my business. They have all kinds of exuding emotional self-esteem and self-confidence. And those of us, and I know when I was younger, I would say, well, why do I have to wait till I'm 50 to get to that place? Why can't I do that now? So that's the conversation we're going to have today, is why can't we do it now? Whatever age you are, finding that self-confidence, finding that voice, learning self-love from an early age so that we make sound decisions in our lives, whether it be in our careers, our friends, and specifically in this conversation, our mates. How often do we think that we've met the mate of our dreams and find out that it's just a nightmare? So today we're going to talk about our picker. So I always talk about my picker's been off, and I was talking to my friend Holly a couple months ago, and I said some kind of funny phrase like the cherry picker, and she started laughing and saying, oh my gosh, that's adorable. And I said, well, you're going to come on a show with me when GWEN Talks Radio launches, and you're going to be the guest co-host of that episode. And I think we should do it right before the holidays, because there's always so much stress around the holidays about relationship. In fact, a few weeks ago, we did have an episode about online dating and the pressures we put on ourselves. So I'm really excited that we are here to have the fabulous guest host, Holly Dowling, to be on the show with me. We also have Kathryn Orford, who is a best-selling author of the book, Become Your Number One Fan. And I think if we're our number one fan, then we're going to have our picker really good. And then I wanted to have a millennial POV for dating and relationships and key points to get our pickers right from an early age. So I was able to find, through this fabulous friend of mine who's a producing partner, Terrah Bennett Smith, give a shout out to her and her dear friend Silvia, who I met recently, and she's absolutely amazing. So I know that her daughter, AshleyGrissette, is going to be an amazing guest on the show. She's going to talk about the millennial point of view. And then for our music inspiration, we have Natania Lalwani. And this song was brought to my attention through a friend of mine, Annika Paris, who's an amazing producer, writer, singer, teacher, etc. And she had a student, Natania, and they actually write songs together. And Natania is one of these most prolific songwriters, and she has oodles and oodles of songs out there, but I figured the theme of the cherry picker goes with cherry love, and it's a very infectious and beautiful song that you're going to really tap your toes and want to get up and dance to. So we'll be doing that at the end of the show, as well as the Mind Over Matter Minute. So I can't wait to get back from this break and get started with dear old Holly Dowling. So we'll be right back.
There are self-help seminars costing thousands of dollars guaranteeing miraculous transformations. There are compelling speakers and life-changing weekend experiences where you can walk on fire. They all deliver revelations that guarantee you'll come back for the more expensive revelations filled with even greater wonder next month on Fiji. We get addicted to positive, heartfelt, expensive theater. What we really need is a jumpstart, an awakening, someone who can give us a reminder that everything we need lies within. Through inspiration and practical knowledge, Dorothy Donahue helps people get grounded and motivated, inspired and energized. It's not just words and affirmations and the power of intention. It's a mindset brought about by a tangible, transcendental experience, an audio-visual, physical, spiritual experience that helps us realize we transform ourselves. We get tools to become the conscious co-creators of lives of unlimited potential. Find out more. Go to DorothyDonahue.com.
We are coming back from the break. You are listening to GWEN Talks Radio. This is Tess Cacciatore, and I get to do my charity spotlight, which I'm really proud of my guest host, Holly Dowling. What an amazing woman. You're going to hear so much words of wisdom and fun that every time we get together, we're giggling and laughing. But she told me today that she's starting her own organization, which will start in January 2018. So if you're listening to this ahead of time, then you'll know that hollyshope.org has already started. If you're listening to it in the month of December, just know next month, please go and see Holly's Hope and find out what she's doing and how you can support her. So let me talk to you about Holly. I met her during the Women's Economic Forum in Santa Barbara, and they had panels and panels of women, one after the other, each one just gloriously wonderful. But when Holly started talking, I said, oh my gosh, I need to know this woman. She is vivacious. She's charming. She's beautiful. She's successful. She's a dynamic global keynote speaker. Every time I try to track her down, she's in one part of the world or the other. But I have to mention that the thing that was our icebreaker was that she had the most adorable capri pants on. She's giggling already before I even tell her I'm on the show. All right, so now that you're here, Holly, welcome to the show. And please tell them now that you're laughing about your adorable pants.
I just have to say, it was the pants. I'll never forget you running up and going, we have to know each other. And by God, I love your pants. And I right then in the moment, I said, this is my new best friend.
Exactly.
So Tess, I just adore you. And your introduction makes everybody, I feel like $1 million. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh, but you have to get those. I have to get a pair. We'll have to be twinsies and walk around somewhere because those pants were so fabulous. But more than fabulous, here you are. We've been talking about this for a while now. So I'm so glad that you got to take a break off your Grand World Tour and exhale. And how are you? I feel like we need to catch up here. And then I want to talk about this cherry picker conversation that we started, for gosh sakes.
Oh, I love it. I am fabulous. You know, it's my favorite time of the year, so just, we could spend hours talking about just this time of year I get overwhelmed with gratitude. So it's just been incredible. But I just have to say, I can't believe the time is here because I so remember what you were just sharing, this conversation we had about the cherry pickers. And I just died laughing. I'm like, I love that so much. I will do anything because I think that is just the perfect segue to so many different things that especially women, and I would say men too, right, Tess? But as women, like, oh my God, how many times did it take me to pick a cherry? Right? I mean, let's face it.
I'm still looking to pick the cherry. I have my picker out. It's much more honed, so it's much more selective cherry picker, but I'm so glad that you have a great cherry on the top of your sundae.
Well, and if I could I have to say this to you because, and anybody listening will love this, but it took me years after having the old saying, and it was a great counselor that said to me, don't you see, you bit into the red delicious apple and it was full of worms. And so, Tess, that is really, when you said cherry picker, I thought that's exactly how I love thinking about the relationship I'm in now and how blessed and fortunate I am. But it didn't come without a lot of bad apples, right?
So speaking of the bad apples and the cherries that have the pits, I'm making lots of fruit puns here. What do you think is the core, another pun, of the issues that I think that women go to when they pick the wrong person, and men too, as we say?
Yeah. And it's such a big question. And I think there's so many different things that come underneath it. But as I can't wait to hear from your other guest, I heard the title of the book, Be Your Biggest Fan. I think it starts there. I don't think I was ever my biggest fan. I think I was always looking for affirmation and acceptance from everyone else instead of being able to look in the mirror and say, boy, God created me. I'm a beautiful human being and that I like who I am. It's like we spend our life trying to put in what was left out versus trying to own and be excited and share with the world what was put in. So I think that's a core. And I think we look to other people to validate or fill that, right? And I think I was one of the first to do that. I mean, I could go on and on about that, but I think that's a core.
I think we all have that. I think we all have that thing where we don't have that self-awareness and self-love. And as I said in the introduction, because I think about this often, there's always women that when they turn 50 and when they turn 60 and when they turn 70, when they turn 80, and I know fabulous women in each of those categories, the older the woman has gotten, the more self-assured and in love with themselves they are. So how come we can't get that from an early age, that when we're 8 and 9 and 10 and in our teenage years, when we have that first spark of love and when we find our first true love, whatever that is, why do we go for the bad boy or the bad girl or whatever, whatever our choices are? I don't know what that is. I think, I would love to pose that question to you.
Yeah, well, and I think that, again, a really fully loaded question, but honestly, it goes back to all of those things that we're looking for. We're looking for that person to be our savior, that prince. I mean, maybe we could go and say, is this coming from media? Is this coming from how we were raised? Is it societal? Is it cultural? Is it in the family? I mean, I think there's so many things. But when I heard just the way you asked me that, I thought, I do believe that I was looking for other people to make me feel that I'm worthy of something. And then I wanted to live up to that expectation. And, when I finally let go, and I know it's sad, isn't it? But you see women and you see them hit 50 and 60 and they're so happy and they're aging gracefully. And I have to say, when I hit 40 is when I started to really realize, like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done pleasing the world. I'm done worrying about what everybody thinks. And it sounds crazy, but why did it take till my 40s and then 50? I mean, who cares? I'm loving being gray. I color it, Tess. I'm not going to lie. But, at the end of the day, though, it's like the whole pressure of parenting, I was a single mom for a long time. So add that to the mix, right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the best I can do? Always beating myself up. I mean, we are great at beating ourselves up. And
there's a lot of single parents out there. So what do you recommend to the single parents out there in the dating world?
Oh, well, I think for me, and I can speak honestly, I made myself a pact that I thought to myself, I have boys. What kind of a woman do I want them to be attracted to? So I chose to not, if I was going to date, I dated people, like in other cities, or I kept it very, very private from my boys until I knew it was somebody that I really wanted to introduce them to. But I didn't want them to see people coming and going out of my life. And that was a really big choice for me. And sometimes it was just easier for me to say, you know what, maybe I'll just put this on pause for 5 years, get my boys up to a certain age and focus on working. I mean, you can only do so much and you only have so much energy, right?
Yes.
And where are we spending it?
Well, and raising children is, I bow to all of you parents, sincerely bow and kiss the ground, because I am kind of the advocate, fairy godmother, auntie, mama Tess to my kids in Africa. I don't have my biological children, but the parenting role and job that you all have is the most important job in the world. I'm totally, completely, utterly convinced, because the parents are the ones that are really coming from that place of healing, getting through the emotional distraught of the baggage that we've carried, letting go and letting forgiveness to come into the picture, raising the children to be great human beings in the world, and therefore setting the example and breaking the cycle of abuse so that the future generations don't have to carry the burden of the past.
Yes, 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 yes to everything you just said. And probably that is why it was so important to me, Tess, in raising boys, to break the pattern of abuse, for them to see that at some point I could be loved and I can choose to love without sacrificing everything, but it's not in an abusive situation. I was not, so I have to be honest with you. We always get really transparent, right? I'm going to get really transparent right now. I was raised in such a religious home that part of what I had to deal with mentally was realizing that I don't believe that any God out there wanted me to be behind closed doors getting abused. And I was getting really abused. So I remember thinking, but then you mess with yourself, right? Am I being a bad person if I get a divorce? What's the right decision here? And all I can say to anybody, and to you, Tess, if I was looking at you right now, is something bigger and better than me knew enough to say, I was not put on this earth to be beat to death. I was not put on this earth to be treated like shit, and I do not want my children to be raised seeing this. And Absolutely. That was all I could have. But I knew it was enough to say, I will work 3 jobs. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure my boys get to see something healthy.
Wow. God bless you for that. That's not an easy choice to make. And every day, because Gwen deals with a lot of people behind the scenes. I personally deal with a lot of people behind the scenes that's not out in public because they're very private, intimate conversations that we reveal to heal, which is our tagline. Mm-hmm. And there's one case of a gal that I know that has been forced into sexual abuse and sex trafficking by her biological parents. And she's been through the healing process with various therapists and things like that. And I almost feel like she's in that same space again of being abused by the therapists. Oh. That they are keeping her in this cycle for whatever thing that it serves them. So that's a whole other show, a whole other bag of beans. But there's so much that we got to talk about to be able to see how we can come to that place of self-love. Yeah. And become our number one fan, which will be the book that we're talking about with Kathryn Orford next up. I wish this show was like 3 hours long sometimes.
I know. And I'm just sitting here thinking, one of the things that's really important to me, and because we can go into such deep darkness talking about this, and it's real. And we know it's real. You're just what you just shared. This woman that, literally my stomach just flipped and my heart sank just listening to what you shared. And I made a choice for myself, and I want everybody to know this. Yes, I get to do what I love, and I'm all over the world getting to be a messenger of things that make people great, focusing on their strengths and gifts. But I chose many years ago to not live in woe is me. I choose to live in wow is me. And Tess, back to the first question you asked, I choose everyday joy. I choose the people I want to be around. I choose to not be around negative people. I choose joy and love. And you know what? When I gave myself permission to say, Holly, you don't need anybody else to give you permission to make a choice on how you want to live and the people you choose to welcome into your circle, that's when things changed for me, Tess. Honestly. So I really want to go there because I want people to know, right? It's in some ways, we can't change the world. You can't change everyone else and how they're going to treat you, but you can change how you choose to wake up every day and who you choose to be around. And that's important to me.
And once we make those choices, we also teach people how to treat us. Mm-hmm. And we are able to move through the bad choices that we made, forgive ourselves, and go through that whole thing. One of the things that keeps popping to my mind since I've talked to you, because I know you travel a lot and you're in a successful relationship. One of my things that I've done in my single life is I've taken myself on dates. I don't know how many women out there, feel comfortable going on a date by themselves, but I love date night with me. And I usually do like late afternoon matinee, and then I go to dinner. I might sit at a bar, so it's a little bit more, break the ice kind of situation rather than sitting at a table for one. But I highly recommend it because you get to know yourself really well in those situations.
I love it. I'm literally giving you, if I could stand up and not have my headset fall off, I'm giving you a standing ovation, because that was another huge move for me, was to give myself permission on a Friday night to not feel I needed to be on a date. I wanted a date with myself, a bubble bath, a glass of wine, a great movie. Oh my gosh, it feels good to take care of you.
I know.
Things. Yeah, babe.
I know. Like the 4:00 afternoon movie on a Friday, and then I would walk downtown Burbank and go to P.F. Chang's and sit at the bar and maybe strike up a conversation with somebody, maybe not. People think, they're going to think I'm something, and they have this whole dialogue inside their head. They don't care, especially people in LA. They're so, into their own worlds, and people, no matter where you live, they're in their own cliques or their own whatever, their own groups. They don't even notice you're sitting there. They could care less. But if you can sit there and have a great time with yourself, have a conversation, not necessarily, I'm not recommending talking out loud because you might look a little crazy, but just to be able to enjoy and know what you want to order, what you want to eat, where you want to go, what your delicious moments are in life. I think when we get really clear about that, then we get to the place where we can attract that right person that comes in, because we're so fully aware of what we do every given day and how we think every way about ourselves.
This is why I love you. Absolutely, 100%. I am just sitting here smiling. I love that. Love it.
I'm sitting here smiling too because I'm so happy that we're here at this time, and we're going to take a quick break because I can't wait for you to meet this Australian beautiful woman I met a couple of years ago. She's in the Aloha land of Hawaii. So I love this show because we can talk to anybody from all over the world. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Kathryn Orford.
Check out the theme song from the feature film Bloodline, Now or Never, by David Longoria featuring April Diamond. The title song, Now or Never, is available on iTunes, Amazon, and other major music streaming outlets. By buying Now or Never, you will be supporting the campaign to help end the poaching of rhinos in Africa.
Okay, you're listening to GWEN Talks Radio, and I'm your host, Tess Cacciatore. I want to take this time to thank our sponsors and advertisers. So if you have a book to promote, an event coming up, a company that has like-minded sensibilities and core values, we would love to hear from you because we love to be able to collaborate and to showcase people around the world and what's going on. So the next charity spotlight we're going to talk about is youthoffthestreets.com.au. And AU, of course, stands for Australia. And I'm going to bring on the amazing Kathryn Orford, who I met through our mutual friend, Mark Sackett, who has a great networking event. And I just heard this lovely accent one night and kind of like Holly's pants. I said, who are you? Let's talk. So Kathryn and I began talking, and she had this book, Become Your Number One Fan, and I loved the title of it. And through our conversations, she got connected to someone I knew that was working on a feature film, and we'll have her talk about that because her book got to be featured in this film. So there's so many other things we can talk about, her confidence coaching, all kinds of things, but I'd rather her tell you. So Kathryn, welcome to the show. And you're here with Holly too.
Thank you. Aloha to both of you beautiful goddesses.
Oh, we should be in Hawaii right now, sitting on the beach.
I know.
In a colada.
Let's put that out there. That's another interview that we can do.
Oh my gosh, GWEN Talks Radio from the sandy beach. Oh, I love that. Mm. So, Kathryn, welcome to the show. I want to just talk about when we first met through Mark and his networking event, and tell our listeners about, because we want to dive into your book about becoming your number one fan. The title of your book is Become Your Number One Fan. I keep saying becoming because really, it's just
it's
whatever.
A journey.
It's a journey. We're all becoming our number one fan. But I want them to know about the story about the film that you were featured in, from this weird, odd connection that started when we first met.
So the name of the film is Butterfly Court, as in CAUGHT versus tennis court. And it's about 3 aspiring actresses trying to make it in the competitive grind of Hollywood, and what they do to basically sell themselves out and are not being their number one fan. They're just really, it's very, very much what's happening in pop culture in Hollywood right now, actually, is it's revealing all of the casting couch stuff and all of the things that women do, and men, that is putting, I guess, their career ahead of their own self-esteem and their own self-worth. So it was actually really an honor to be a part of this. And that really just came about by me happening to be at Mark's event and you happening to be there, and, like serendipitous, really. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very serendipitous, and all of a sudden, this newfound friend of mine was getting her book featured in a film of someone who I knew that was working on the film, and here we go.
Yes.
I'm so proud of you for that. And then your book ended up being bestseller, and you have this fabulous publicist who I got to meet when you were in Los Angeles, and he was popping you all over the country. What was your tour like? I know you got back and just collapsed, I'm sure, with pure excited exhaustion.
It was incredibly fantastic. I mean, I had a blast. What I realized is I really, really, really love doing this sort of thing. And it's really giving me the avenue to get my message out to as many people in the world that, we really do need to learn to love ourselves from the inside out and not be, as Holly was mentioning, I spent the first 33 years of my life looking for acknowledgement from everybody else that I was okay. And it was really when I was at my absolute lowest of lows that I really was about to take my life, that I started to realize that self-love was really the only way that I was going to come back and rebuild my life. But getting back to the tour, yes, we had an amazing time. My publicist, Matt, is an absolute hoot. You know, when you just click with somebody, and
he's great.
And we were touring with his little puppy, or not a puppy, she's 6 years old, Mama, who he had found in a trash bin in New York. And she's the best behaved puppy I've ever known. To actually get to be in, where were we? CBS LA News, and then up to Vegas for 2 shows, and then over to Phoenix, and then to Kansas City, and then back to LA. You know, and that's just the first part of the tour. So I'm incredibly blessed to have met him. He's a fellow Aussie, but does not have an Aussie accent anymore. He's been in the US for about 12 years. And then we're going to do an East Coast tour and down south as well. So, it's wonderful. It's really, I think, the message, you know, when beautiful Louise Hay passed a few months ago, I think a lot of us that are on this mission to spread the message of self-love and self-belief, we were handed the baton. And I had the pleasure of meeting and thanking Louise, because when I was at my lowest ebb and I chose life, it was her work that actually taught me how to rebuild my life. I had fallen into 1,000 pieces like Humpty Dumpty. I had fallen off that wall big time. And really, it was Louise's You Can Heal Your Life book that helped me rebuild my life.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you, because there's so many people every day in so many places that have that lowest of lowest of lowest. They've hit ground bottom like Humpty Dumpty and splattered in 1,000 pieces. Yeah. And how do you put the pieces back together again and not take that leap in the opposite dark direction, but to really see the light and step into it? So Louise Hay was one of your people. How did you do that? Like step by step, because right now we're in the holiday season and there's a lot of suicides and depression and things like that going on. So how do we address those issues?
For me, I knew that I really had to do the work. I had already dipped my toes in the water of Louise's work. I came across her work, her books, and Shakti Gawain's Living in the Light when I was in my 20s. But when Louise actually said, to look in the mirror and tell yourself you loved yourself, I found that too confronting. It was like I could sing the song, I Love Myself the Way I Am, but I couldn't look in the mirror at that stage. Because my inner critic was having a field day. And I need to let your listeners know that at the time that I was laying on the cold tiles in my bathroom floor, my inner critic was chastising me for not even being able to organize my own suicide properly. And I didn't know back then that everybody had an inner critic. I thought I was just this freak. And I had no idea that I could retrain it. And obviously over those years, we've learned about neuroplasticity and how we can create new neural connections and things. So certainly for me, when I chose life, I chose to never allow anyone to rob me of my self-esteem ever again. And, using the analogy that Holly used, I thought I had met the man of my dreams in my early 30s. I had married and divorced very young. A word for your your listeners that are perhaps millennials and really in that dating scene of their 20s and early 30s, we have to be incredibly careful. What I learned along the way of my personal development and professional development journey is that we gravitate towards what we know. And my mom and dad had they didn't have a passionate relationship way before I ever came along. They ended up being best friends and business partners, but I didn't grow up with that amazingly passionate couple bringing me up. They were passionate about me, but they weren't passionate about themselves. My dad was an incredibly good-looking man who had been #1 Australian cycling champion. He had women throwing themselves at his feet. And so what did I gravitate towards? I gravitated towards the good-looking assholes who had commitment phobias.
Oh, my gosh. I love it. Cool. I was dipping into.
Yeah. And so I thought I was biting into this amazingly beautiful, shiny apple. And oh my God, was it full of worms. And, this man lied to me. And, when you get a twist in your gut, my intuition is highly tuned. And I think partly because I'm adopted, we have to be highly, hyper vigilant to make sure we're still safe, right? And so, but I didn't know at the time I was in my deepest, darkest depression. I didn't find out. That was at 33. At 43, I found out I was adopted. And so many more things made sense as to why I felt so worthless. But really, the person that I thought was this man of my dreams definitely became my biggest nightmare, which in turn, and I really want your listeners to hear this, the biggest nightmare really in hindsight down the track was my biggest gift, because it set me off on a totally different trajectory of my life. And it just took hindsight to get there. And, he overlapped his women. He lied. I got that twist in the gut, that one when someone's not telling the truth, but I wanted to believe him. And so I did. He was two-timing me. He was still living with someone as a partner, but he said they were just under the same roof. So there was virtually 3 of us in this kind of scenario. He dumped me. He then started really full on dating this other woman, and he married her within 3 months of dumping me. So, there was a lot of worms in that apple, shall we say. That's all I need to say about that one. But really what I started to learn on my journey of self-discovery was that I needed to create a brand new story for myself, and I needed to have the awareness to not keep on being attracted to these good-looking, lovable assholes that either lied or two-timed their women. And so that was a journey. And as I started to really do the work on myself, the quality of the men that started to show up in my life changed. And I went, wow, this is such confirmation that I'm on the right track, that I'm healing all of those things that we pick up. We pick up the good, the bad, and the ugly as little tiny children. And we have to really be committed to sifting through all of that stuff and bringing it up to the surface so that we can, as you say, reveal it and heal it.
Absolutely. Holly, do you have anything you want to add? I know you're chomping at the bit because I can feel you.
I'm just smiling, and I want to hug you, Kathryn. I'm literally jumping through the phone line because, I'm so grateful for somebody as gorgeous as you in this world that you're sharing from the heart. And those beautiful, wonderful, red, delicious assholes, not apples.
I don't know what it's the Australian accent, though, that they just say the word and it sounds much better.
But I'm so excited that you are alive, and you chose by, the grace within you to not let, I always say, when we let someone else get the best of us, we're giving away our soul and they win. And that's not okay, right? When you can almost look at it as somebody doesn't get to win and take the best of me. And I love that you've been on this journey, and I love Louise Hay too. So I was smiling when you were sharing that. So I'm just sitting here smiling, Tess, going, I can't wait. We're going to Hawaii. That's it. We're going to
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to have you two together because I thought that this would be a magical blend. And speaking about the magical blend of bringing in a millennial into the mix, because we need to really bridge these generations, find out what's going on in the hearts and minds of the young women that are in this dating pool and the young men as well. This is one of the first shows, I think, that I have all women on the show. Last week was all men. It's so fabulous just to shake it up a little bit and get all the opinions that we have in different age categories, demographics around the world, etc. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be with Ashley. So hang on to your seats, and we'll be right back.
The Life Changes Show is a premier radio show presented by the Life Changes Network, which is a company whose team has dedicated their lives not only to positive change, but to helping others observe and embrace, honor, and even celebrate their own changes, thus enabling a more positive, inspired life and helping to create a more positive and inspired world. From everyday people, celebrities, corporate giants, and children, we are here to help and to serve. With heart, integrity, and experience, we bring our message and positive intent into your lives through the Life Changes Show, lifechangesnetwork.com, and through guest appearances on other inspiring shows and events. If you wish to learn more about Life Changes Life Coaching, a private consultation with one of us, corporate or live event appearances, Or if you would like us to appear on your radio or TV shows, please email us at info@lifechangesnetwork.com.
Welcome back to GWEN Talks Radio. This is your host, Tess Cacciatore. We have our beautiful co-host, Holly Dowling, and the great, gracious Kathryn Orford. We had this great conversation coming on, and we need to bring in the conversation with our millennials, our younger women, the ones that are taking the torch from us women and getting ready to hand it down to the next generation. The charity spotlight that Ashley's bringing to the table is the Single Parent Alliance of America. So it's SPAOA.org. So the Single Parent Alliance of America. So Ashley, I met through her mom, through various serendipity conversations I was having with Terrah yesterday. I love Silvia. Your mom is so great. What I wanted to talk about with you, Ashley, come please join this show, jump in the water with us. We're going to have a great conversation. And I also have to remind our listeners that this is an international show. And also we're all doing it from the comfort of our homes, which is wonderful. So single moms and business women and people alike can call in from all over the area. So you might hear a dog barking. You might hear a baby crying. You might hear clicking on the phone, which is happening right now, an airplane flying overhead, a tea kettle whistling. So whatever it is, just know that you're in the hearts and in our homes as well. So Ashley, we talked briefly yesterday. I'm so excited to bring you to the show. You have a twin sister. My nieces are twins, so I shout out to all the twins in the world.
Yes,
tell us your journey of where you are in the world. You have the beautiful, shiny red apple now, and there's no cherry pits on the table. You have a wonderful life. You just moved down to San Diego. Tell us your journey of how you got to this beautiful apple and in the millennial world. What's going on in the dating scene with your girlfriends in that same age group?
Okay. My story has many layers, but I guess the start would be, I'm 28 years old. My mother has been married, is in her third marriage. They've been married for a decade. They're very happy. I love my stepdad. He's amazing. But the process of getting there was not an easy one. My father actually was extremely abusive to her. So I was blessed enough not to see it, but I have memories, I guess, of parts of it. So when I was 5 years old, my mom left and took us to to Dallas, Texas. Flash forward many, many years ahead of time. I met my husband, who I'm now divorced from, in Austin, Texas. And when I met him, he was amazing. He was very sweet. He was so caring. He was completely different than most guys I'd ever met. And I was like, that's my apple. Well, he turned out to be my apple with many, many worms in it. One of the very large ones being that he is an alcoholic. And I didn't know that when we met. When you're dating a millennial, a lot of the times dating revolves around going out and having drinks with various people. And, I work in the restaurant industry. So a lot of our gatherings happen in restaurants and bars and all that kind of thing. So to me, it was normal that he was drinking a lot because that's everybody that I knew did. I'm not a big drinker, but everybody I know drinks a lot. So it wasn't a big deal until when you marry someone and you get in a relationship with someone and then you have a son with that person, then suddenly everything becomes clear. You're seeing, him staying out till very late in the evening or versus, or as in, very early in the morning as well, 2-3 in the morning. And we have a son that we need to raise, and him watching him, but not really watching him being passed out and just kind of putting him in a crib and all these kind of situations where I was noticing that him being 6 months at the time, my son, his name's Phoenix, being 6 months at the time, learning that when Phoenix is 2-3 and he can walk, he can crawl, he can talk, he can open doors, he can jump off of things, all of those things that are hard enough as a sober, aware parent to watch. How could a parent that's an alcoholic do that? And, of course, approaching him, having those conversations saying, hey, can you go get clean? Can you go get help? Can you go to AA? I'll be there. I'll support you. We'll be right here with your family. And him basically saying, no, I'm not going to do that. And so that's when I realized I had to step away from that situation. And I stepped away. I took my son with me, and we left. And at my restaurant that I worked at in Austin, I took a promotion and met my boyfriend, who actually was one of the servers that I was training as a manager. So it's kind of a weird situation. But he turns out to be this amazing man that I just kind of walked by me one day. And I wasn't looking for him. I absolutely was not looking for him. And he just kind of walked by, and I was like, wow, I hope you're nice, because every other guy that I've met up to you has not been nice and been horrible. And he turned out to be great. And he loves my son. He said he fell in love with my son before he fell in love with me. And I think that was a big thing for me, because I think a lot of times when you're a younger mom, when you're trying to date, as soon as you say, I have a son, people are like, oh, that's really nice. But they don't really want that. They don't want, that quote unquote baggage in their life, yet. So yeah, I think my dating relationships as a millennial is a little bit more complicated than most people, I guess, that are millennials. But I think it's the same thing. You still have Tinder. You're still swiping left or right if you like somebody, if you don't like somebody or like the way they look, or you're wanting to go on a date with a guy who seems great, and you only see 100 words of what their life is, and then you enter their life and you're like, whoa, you have more issues than I thought. Or, I think it's still similar. I think that it's still similar to the way that from all of the stories that you guys were telling me, I can relate to, even though I'm 28, I can relate to those stories because I more recently, I guess, have been there. I'm still in that stage where, I just met the guy 5 years ago that was the bad apple, versus being able to talk about it, to my kids or to younger people later in my life. I'm still kind of, I guess, processing and healing from those type of situations. But
wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, because it sounds so familiar I'm sure all of us on the phone, we could relate to that for obvious reasons. And also, I want the listeners out there, especially if you're a millennial and you're young and you're just entering into the dating world, or if you're older, the narcissistic, abusive men will never come up and tell you that. They have it down to a pat, and almost unconsciously, they don't even know. They're the most charming, charismatic types of individuals. They're not going to have a sign above their head saying, watch out, I'm an abuser. So we need to really kind of talk about the signs of what it is, being really self-conscious, have the be your number one fan, watch out for yourself throughout the process, because those little triggers that you might have been able to see in the bar, was there any little sign that we could see, just any kind of reaction that he would have done, to somebody else that could be a trigger that says, oh, we better watch out for that person. So, and I welcome Kathryn and Holly to jump in here as well, because I think this is a really important conversation to have, is what are the signs that we look out for so that bad apple doesn't get into our apple cart. Does anybody have any ideas?
Yeah, for me, it was definitely, the lesson was listen to your intuition. It is never wrong.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had done that. The first I wish I had.
Actually, all of us could say we wish we did that, because, in hindsight is 2020, that cliche term came for a reason, because there is, the gut instinct. Also, for me personally, I chose very powerful men in the industry, specifically in the music industry, that promised me. I was, like in my book, my chapter is called The Rabbit Hunter, because I was a rabbit. I went after the dangling carrot, and those men knew how to dangle that carrot. Mm-hmm. And so we have to know if that carrot is a good carrot or a poison carrot. I love the fact that we're bringing up all these fruits and vegetables here, so it's making me hungry. But the dangling carrot is something that I think we can all relate to as well. Is like, what are they promising? What are they putting forth, rather than just coming from their heart and loving your son before you? How powerful is that? Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And Tess, I'd love to add, listening to you, Ashley, I'm so proud of you. And I just,
thank you.
Inspiration at 28, right? To be able to say, and share where you've come, and you didn't let the world, I'm going to be so blunt. I say this a lot, but you didn't let the world should on you, SHOULD. You should stick this out. You should do this, right? You should wait. You should, because I think that what I got to hear you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes it's when we have another life we've been given. When that child came into your life, it kind of empowered you to look at this situation in an even bigger way, right? Like if you were able to have like that empowered, like by golly, I'm going to do something, and this is not acceptable.
And with him, with Phoenix, I think the biggest thing for me, and it definitely was that for 100%, but it also was the fact that I never would have had to change where I was in my life if he wasn't born as well. So I don't think I ever would have seen, our relationship had started and ended in less than 2 years. My son turns 2 in January. So we literally, we didn't date for very long before our son was basically going to be here. So it was, and then we got married after that. So I think the biggest issue for me was that I didn't want people to, and should is a great word, because I also grew up in a very, very religious household as well. But my mother, you guys, I don't think all of you have met my mother, but my mother is a very special person. Yes. So even though the church I grew up in was very religious, my mom never let that kind of seep into our household. So I was very aware of like, if you're in a bad relationship, just get out of it. Don't let yourself sit in a horrible relationship forever and just be miserable, because, you should keep, marriage is a covenant, and you should, stand by your husband and be a strong wife and all of these things. And to me, it was more that at the end of the day, my son comes before not just me, but needs to be before my marriage, in the sense that his safety is more important than that. And my lifestyle was drinking and going out and all of that. And if I never had to stay home and take care of him and not come home at 3:00 in the morning because he has a feed at 3:00 in the morning, and I don't want to be tired and hungover or whatever the next day when he gets up at 6 and all that stuff having to change, my eyes would have never been open to that, to the fact that, oh wow, there's this huge issue in front of me and I never saw it before. So yeah, he definitely turned out to be a blessing.
Your protector, because you had to raise the bar, not letting people in there that are going to be like the father. You had to really just be very clear, and the gut, the intuition, following your heart, all of those things are really, really important. We're unfortunately coming to the close of the hour, but I just want to kind of circle back around and just, throw one more ring into the hoop ring. What do you feel about yourself now, and how do you recommend for someone to get a better picker, to get that cherry on top of that sundae, to really rise to the self? What would be like a minute or so conclusion to your advice to our listeners today?
I would just say that I think intuition, like was already said, is the biggest thing. I think as a young person, we don't trust our intuition because we have so many friends. We have our squad. We have a lot of people that have opinions about our life. We have our parents that are still very influential. I think at the end of the day, when you sit in your room and you're quiet, and I do this for myself a lot now, and it's just you and your space, what are you happy in your relationship? Do you see everything? Are you seeing everything? And I think if you can get to that point of like self-awareness, then picking the right guy will be a lot easier, because you know yourself so well that you can pick out the bad things faster and easier. So.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had that wisdom when I was your age. So Kathryn, what would you like to say about your book and becoming your number one fan?
I think certainly for me, and certainly the thousands of people that I've shared my book with and the people that have done the exercises in it, it's really around cleaning out the crap. Basically, it's about cleaning out all of the limiting beliefs and conditioning that we have taken on board about not deserving as tiny children. And really, once we've cleaned that out and we start really turning that inner critic into a cheer squad, which, by the way, if people do go to becomeyournumberonefan.com, they can actually opt in and get a 5-part free video series where I literally, the first half of the book is all about cleaning out the crap, and then the second half is about rebuilding your life. And they can actually learn not only first of all, what is self-esteem? How is it depleted? Where did that inner critic come from? And more importantly, how can you actually turn that into a cheer squad? And part of the journey is around really shining a torch on your limiting beliefs and behaviors. And we do a behaviors and beliefs audit and go, right, what behaviors and beliefs did I pick up as a tiny child that serve me, and which ones don't serve me, and which ones do I need to release right now in order to become my number one fan? Once we're our number one fan, then, as I said before, the quality of the people that we draw to us changes significantly. So that's, for me, it's about doing the inner work. And then obviously everybody that comes anywhere near our area of influence is going to be mirroring that. So do the work. Really, it can be scary, but what have you got to lose? All you've got to lose is the inner critic and whatever it is that's not working for you in your life right now.
I love that. Wow, I can talk to you all forever. And lovely co-host of the day, Holly, what words of wisdom would you like to share or pose a question that people can ponder?
Oh, well, I am just loving listening to what both these brilliant and amazing women have shared. And I'm just sitting and I keep smiling, because it's smiling of joy to know, please, to anybody listening, listen to real people that have made a choice to take a better step in life, right? And not let the world, again, like Ashley loved it, but not letting others shit on us. And what Kathryn just said, I think there's so much to be said about that inner critic, and something that, I say this on stage to everybody, men and women, it doesn't matter where. I'm passionate about this. Be highly aware of the emotional vampires in your life. Right? It is time. It is time, ladies and gentlemen, to give yourself permission to fall back in love with who you are. You were put here for a reason. And I always to me, I believe life is a gift, and it's what we do with it and give back is our gift back. And, there's so much. So it's choosing joy, choosing love, choosing self-talk that can really help make a difference. And some days we all have our bad days, right? We're not saying every day is a bed of roses. It's just how I choose to get through that day and who I choose to seek out. I call them the balcony people, the people that I know will always lift me up on a bad day. And the biggest thing I would say, and I think all of us, Tess, on this call would agree, is I'm going to pose all of your listeners with the question. It's not just who is in your life that's a balcony person, and be aware of the emotional vampires, but choose to be a balcony person to all the others in your life. It comes back to you. It's serendipity. Choose to shine a spotlight on others in the world, and you too will see the gift of joy that will come back. So
I love that. Well, you're all of you have my mind percolating. The shine in the spotlight and on individuals and organizations that are making the world a better place is Global Women's Empowerment Network's mission. So I love that you said that. And one of the things that I think is really important is that when we're together, when you're with just one other person, when you're with a group of people, when you talk on the phone with somebody and you hang up, how do you feel? Are you feeling depleted, drained, lethargic? Your stomach is upset. You have crunky shoulder syndrome, whatever. Or do you feel empowered and enlightened and excited about taking on the world? Because those are the formulas, I think, if you really start to look at it. How are people empowering one another? That deals with, if you're on a date, watch that pattern. If that guy is charismatic and wonderful at the very beginning, just wait to see if that little shoe drops where they have that little dig. It's just a subtle ping. It's a little dig. It's a little chip in the ice block that is starting to do that ping that will eventually turn into a crack, which will eventually turn into the ice cubes exploding with wormy apples. Trying to bring it all around together with the worms since everyone brought it. But I thank you all so much for being on the show today. And as all serendipity and wonderful things happen with this show, when I was thinking of the cherry picker and Holly and I's conversation a few months ago, and then 2 days ago, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the music inspiration, because music is so important in all of our lives. And I love the musicians and the songwriters and the creative people in my life. And I met Natania Lalwani a couple of years ago through Annika Paris. She was teaching her and they've written music together. She's a singer-songwriter from Mumbai. She not only sings beautifully and a clever lyricist, profound lyricist like you would not believe. She's award-winning, etc. She plays piano, guitar, and ukulele. Our song for today is called Cherry Love, which is in line, obviously, with the Cherry Pickers. So we're going to take a quick break. You're going to hear Cherry Love. You're going to have the Mind Over Matter minute, and I'll be back to close down the show and say goodbye. But right now, let's take a listen to Cherry Love.
Oh, 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 oh. You taste like sorbet on a sunny day. You make me feel so good, you make me want to play my guitar. You say sugar, strum some chords and write me a love song. Life is too short, we'll be gone before too long. My cherry love, cherry love, cherry love, cherry love. You taste like chapstick on my tongue. When you tie your stem, I come undone. Oh, 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 my cherry love. I put my favorite sundress on just for you. Got my heart-shaped sunglasses and my perfume. And you whisper right into my ear, say I smell a little like lavender. You pull me in, say I'm all you need, and I'm so nervous that I can barely breathe. Oh, my cherry love, cherry love, cherry love, cherry love. You taste like chapstick on my tongue. When you tie your stem, I come undone. Oh, 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 my cherry love. As I'm falling for you, are you falling for me? Wasn't planning on plunging into the deep. As I'm looking at you, are you looking at me? 'Cause you can't pick your cherry with your back to the tree. My cherry love, cherry love, cherry love, cherry love. You taste like chapstick on my tongue. When you tie your stem, I come undone. Oh, 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 my cherry love, cherry love, cherry love, cherry love. You taste like chapstick on my tongue. When you tie your stem, I come undone. Oh, 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 my cherry love, cherry love, cherry love, cherry love. You taste like chapstick on my tongue. When you tie your stem, I come undone. Oh, 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 my cherry love, my cherry love, my cherry love, my cherry love.
And now, a Mind Over Matter minute.
love that song, Cherry Love. And I hope that you took that minute just to breathe and exhale and know that just any minute that you can take during the day for yourself is a really good time to be centered and to be a part of self-love. I'm so grateful to my guests today, this week, and always. This week we had Holly Dowling, we had Kathryn Orford, and we had AshleyGrissette. So each and every week, I appreciate those who are so brave to come together and share their stories so that we can reveal and heal. I'm also so grateful to be safe here in LA. I'm sure that if you're watching the news, you see the terrible fires that are happening here in Southern California. And outside of the smoky air, I'm safe, which is great. I've checked in with everybody I know in these dangerous areas. Everyone seems to be safe so far. But in the visual of the line of fire, I just want to point out that if you're in the line of fire in the natural disasters, which is going on in Southern California recently, in Northern California, if you're in any part of the world that you're in the line of fire with any sort of natural disasters, whether it be hurricanes or earthquakes or whatever, or if you're in the line of fire of any sort of abuse, cyber abuse, emotional abuse, verbal, sexual, physical, get out of the line of fire. Put your oxygen mask on and find that inner strength of inner beauty and self-love. Please know that you're not alone. You're beautiful or handsome, inside and out. I want to also do a shout out to Tabby Biddle and her team for their 50 Women Can Change the World in Media and Entertainment. They are building a community of ambitious women committed to gender parity in Hollywood for a 4-month, game-changing leadership and movement-building program that supports women in redefining power and creating a new blueprint for the industry. You are encouraged to nominate a woman from your community or nominate yourself. The deadlines for nominations are December 10th, which is right around the corner, so go to taketheleadwomen.com, find out how you can nominate that amazing woman in your community. Or as said, nominate yourself. And I encourage you to take the lead women. GWEN is a community that is led by women and joined by men. So please go to GWEN.live and join us today. And remember, the world is much better with you in it. And many blessings until the next time.
Thank you for listening. Visit us at GWEN.live and join our GWEN community. Share what's on your mind.